yeah, it's pretty scary, folks. Remember, anytime government tells you to do something, you know you got to turn around and just go the other way right away, because you know there's nothing but trouble there. I'd like to call on our third speaker now. Mr. John West is associated with the Caretakers Association, and he's been here about 50 years, and he has seen everything and watched the process of what's happened here in Victoria and in government in this country. And I'll turn it over to you, John, and let's see what you have to say about this HST and these taxes.
Thank you. Well, to be quite honest, my information about the HST is not as clear as the gentleman speaker before me, and many of those figures are quite beyond my comprehension. What I do know, however, is that this is, strictly speaking, not a legitimate government here in British Columbia. And I think this matter could very well be brought to the Supreme Court of Canada as a constitutional issue on the basis of the fact that less than 50% of the registered voters in British Columbia actually voted. And according to the information I have, 56,000 British Columbians spoiled their ballots. Now that is a very, very significant number. In 1996, because of my sojourn here in British Columbia, which is now 50 years, and I came as a 23-year-old man, I wrote to the Queen because I believed at that time in 1996 that the Royals and the effect of the British Empire, the results of it, which we're living with, still had some effect. So I wrote to Her Majesty and I pointed out that my concern, after all the years I've been here, was that the failure of the political parties to maintain anything like integrity was destroying the political democratic process, not only in British Columbia, but throughout the world. Now there needed to be something done about this, and I gave it another few years, and finally I decided, yes, what we don't need any more of are political pundits and political parties, and what we do need are an intelligent, philosophical people. Not a philosopher king, but a philosophical people. And after my 50 years in British Columbia and in Canada, I can say with some security that this is in fact what Canadians are. They are a thoughtful people who do rise to the occasion when given the opportunity. The opportunity that has been denied them, in my view, is the opportunity not to have to join a political party, to be able to participate in the government process. This has not been allowed, and in fact in British Columbia there are at least one or two occasions, and especially when this present Campbell government, or the previous Campbell government, refused to acknowledge what is technically known as the butt of the NDP when they failed to get more than 3 candidates. Now, what that meant constitutionally was that the Westminster system of Parliament no longer was functioning in British Columbia, and therefore it was questionable whether any of the legislation, including the sale of BC Rail and all those things going way back, have any legitimacy at all. Now the problem of failure is that there appears to be, in spite of 5,000 I think lawyers in British Columbia, not one of them with the courage to challenge this kind of misbehavior. This misbehavior must be addressed, and this current situation with trying to bring in this new style of taxation is just further erosion of the political process. This has to be stopped, and the only way it will be stopped is, first of all, signing the petition, which is being sent around, I understand, and is quite popular. And the other thing is to follow those good people who in the last election refused to vote for anybody. Now, what should we do if we got a majority, which we certainly did in the last election? More than 50% of the people refused to vote. Now that is a very, very critical point in our history. The alternative, it seems to me, was from those pool of people that refused to vote, and if there were a proper box on the ballot where they could vote none of the above if they chose, we could have a random selection of a man and a woman to govern our affairs as regional representatives. They could meet in separate men and women's circles. to acknowledge the traditions of this province, because this was, remember, and still is, Indian title land, which has never been properly dealt with and needs to be properly dealt with. And thank you, I'm getting some encouragement here from my friends, and I seem to be getting off the subject, but I heard a little applause, and therefore I must be speaking to some people of the Commons in British Columbia, which would see this honourable settlement is the foundation of an honourable state. And without an honourable state, there will never be an honourable politician. Thank you for British Columbia, for the brave people who came out today, and I believe we can look forward to a bright future. But until we get rid of these banksters who are running the show in here, we will never have proper government. And until we have jury-like selection of representatives, there will never be gender balance in Canada or the rest of the world. Thank you for your time, and thanks to the organizations for giving me this opportunity. It shows they're very, dare I say, compassionate people. Thank you.
Thank you, John. You hit on a few good points there. This is, I don't want to misquote, but and I'll just say I will attribute this quote to this person that was on a radio show a while back, and it's the head of BC Labour, Mr. Sinclair, Jim Sinclair, and it was reported that he had said that we no longer live in or have a representative government. Representative government, it is not working. And I think that's what John had just said, this kind of sits on that, is we the people. We the people. We're the ones that have to push the initiative. We're the ones. There's 48 of them in there. I think, or 47. I can't remember what their majority is. Out of 85 that sit in there, there's 4.5 million of us out here. Do the math. Just do the math. The next speaker is a concerned citizen, and he has come by today to tell you how this tax is going to impact him and those around him. And I'd like to turn the podium over now to Mr. Josh Stettler. Josh? Stettler, sorry. Mr. Josh Stettler.
Steffler. No problem. Good afternoon. I'm glad to see so many people came out despite the rain and that are interested in stopping the HST. My name is Josh, and I'm here to make sure that my voice is heard in the HST debate. I am here to hold those responsible, those who represent me, accountable to me. I will not allow the voice of special interests to speak louder than mine. There is and has been a lot of talk about democracy and how undemocratic the HST is. But we don't have a democracy in BC, and we never have. Don't get me wrong, I love the idea of democracy. But in reality, democracy allows the 51% majority to remove the rights of 49% minority, which is what we are seeing in the legislature now. We live in a constitutional monarchy, a government designed with democratic principles where we the people are supposed to decide and vote on the changes, not have them dictated to us. We are supposed to decide what the government does, not have government decide what we will do. The way that this HST is being implemented is not how our government is supposed to work. I was not asked about the HST, were you? Nope. In fact, the more people I asked, including seniors, union workers, conservatives, environmental